Hey YouTube, Derek here with another awesome Wind Wirler video. So this is a comic character bio, so as I've done before, this will be a video where I explain the background on a character that I've come up with, Wind Wirler, which is the namesake of the channel. He's probably one of my oldest characters. I've been drawing him since I was a kid. I'm going to kind of go through the old drawings and we're going to see where he's come from as a concept and where he's going, and this will basically be a lead-up video to the eventual posting and live read-through of my my official comic for Wind Wirler. So yeah, let's get into it. So I think the inspiration for Wind Wirler came from Butch Hartman's Danny Phantom. I was a big fan of this show as a kid, and even before he was Wind Wirler, he was Ghost Boy, which is basically a total ripoff of Danny Phantom. But I've kind of developed the Wind sort of concept. I think it was because I was a big fan of the Wind characters in Bionicle. And of course I loved Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I always sort of had an affinity for air and stuff. And I mean, I am a Libra as well. So it's just kind of been innate in me, the element air. So, but what does survive from the Danny Phantom copy was I kept the name Danny. I guess you could say it was a tribute to the original inspiration, but of course it's Danny Weathers now. Okay, so who is Danny Weathers? He grew up in a nuclear family. He was your average C+ student. I had originally set his story in high school, and that was probably because I was in high school at the time, but before graduating I decided for his main continuity that he would be already out on his own when he gets his powers, living with his high school sweetheart, Lauren McLean. She's a big help to him in his life. So Danny Weathers, as a character, as a person, is usually pretty down on himself. He's sarcastic, pessimistic. He's got high anxiety, which causes lots of problems for him throughout his story. But luckily he's got Lauren to help cheer him up when he's too hard on himself. Lauren is an upbeat, energetic girl. She's basically the opposite of Danny. She's an artist. She paints. The two of them live together in their apartment loft in Montreal, and she paints for a living and he writes. So they're basically broke most of the time, but they're happy together. And he's also got his brother Mark Weathers, who's always there to buy him a beer and give him advice as needed. Mark's also an inventor and one of the smartest characters in my comic continuity. He designs Wind Wirler's new suit as well. And his wife, actually, Mrs. May Weathers, is a nurse, and she will patch Danny up as need be. May is calm, clear-headed, and does not take shit. Basically, these two characters are like super important and integral to his super heroic career. Danny's most redeeming quality is his ability to somehow dorkily charm his way into your heart. He's humble despite having a fairly privileged life. He knows how lucky he is, which is why he can get so depressed and upset, knowing how unfair it can be for other people in the world. So what can Wind Wirler really do? Like, what is whirling wind? Like, what kind of superpower is that? Well, if you're wondering how it works, I kind of pictured it to be a lot like Avatar, where he kind of has this like sixth sense within the wind, where he sort of feels movement around him, and he the way he fights, he tends to use the villain's own power and weight against them. It's a very defensive ability, and he kind of reacts within sort of on instinct, because he doesn't really have much training, right? Like, he's not a fighter. He doesn't take classes. He's a writer, right? An artist. So he doesn't have those abilities, but his power over the wind gives him this sixth sense that kind of heightens him to this crazy level, and he can use his wind power in a myriad of ways. One of the ways I thought was cool is he can punch with the power of a jet engine. It'll just knock things like way back. And I also thought he could do the Superman thing, where he can blow like super intense wind out of his mouth that can basically freeze things. And I also thought, like, of course he could fly, and he sort of uses his cape as kind of like a glider. Batman style almost, but he can continue to glide forever because he can manifest wind, and yeah, he creates tornadoes and stuff. He doesn't have to like spin around like a top, I mean, he could if he wanted to, but he can do those. He can heal quicker than your average human because his body absorbs and processes air or oxygen in the air like way quicker than any other person, so it his body can heal quicker through this process. If that makes sense in superhero logic. If he was really feeling like ruthless, he could create a vacuum if he wanted to, but that would obviously be pretty intense. Like the upper limits of his powers are really like, I'm hoping they'll just continue to grow and become more massive as I tell stories about him. And because really, like, it's all in your imagination, you know, like what can a hero do with these powers is the question. And there's so many ways that people have developed the speed force, whatever, or speed power that the Flash can do. So like I'm hoping, and I've already thought of like hundreds of ways over the years of what he can do with his powers. So just, you know, once you read the comic, you'll sort of experience and learn what he can do along with him, because he'll be learning this stuff as well. So where did it all begin? I started out with just like 1-page comics where I draw him as a stick figure, and I probably had just a handful of those, and I think that was sort of my first run, and I guess you can consider it the sort of the first era in the Wind Wirler chronology, because from there, that was my first go at it, I guess, for trying to create a comic continuity. And the origin in this continuity goes, well, basically, he just falls into a vat of radioactive waste, and that's how he gets his powers. Don't ask me why he was hanging around with radioactive waste. And they were just filled with quirky adventures that could be solved within 2 panels. And the villains, I don't know, I haven't really brought a lot of these guys back, but you know, I might mine these one days for ideas. But also what was introduced was Wiener, which was basically a dog that had wind powers, just like Wind Wirler, and he was based off of my Dashin that I had at the time, Wiener dog. So now we get to my first redesign of the character, and he goes through many different costumes over the years, and we'll kind of cover them over this video. But this was sort of a short one-shot comic I made where I tell the origin again, and this time he gets hit with a meteorite. Somehow that does it. But what's really interesting about it, and integral actually, is that he introduces this villain character that does become a reoccurring character for a few years, which will eventually evolve into Aldous Kane. He is a CEO of this big, massive, dark company that has holdings in every part of the world. He's in search of powered individuals, and he is way older than he looks. But we'll get into him in another video. So at this point, I kind of went through a bit of a renaissance in designing characters, and this is kind of when his most iconic look is developed, and this look will stick for quite a while, and I actually even reference it in the official continuity, and I even got the colors from this era too. So here we are with the adventures of Wind Wirler and Wonder Wiener. We do the origin again. This time it's basically a Spider-Man ripoff where he gets it in a lab. On a field trip, a needle precariously perched falls into his arm and then causes his blood to dissolve into gas or whatever. And he's bullied in school, getting wedgies and stuff, which I wasn't really bullied like this in school, but I guess I had seen it a lot, like with cartoons and TV shows at the time. And what better way for someone to answer the call of justice when they're being wronged constantly in their current everyday life. So this origin story stuck for a while, and I was able to write and draw a few stories within that continuity. Wonder Wiener, as cute and awesome as he was, eventually kind of fell by the wayside. Sort of like Krypto in the golden age of Superman comics, just as I became a little bit more serious with the character. But who knows, a Wiener dog might be referenced in the new continuity one day. And then we have the Power Pals, which is the first superhero group Wind Wirler joins. It's made up of superheroes that my friends had come up with, and I basically drew their designs, and I maybe made just a few team up comics with them, and it was just all for fun, right? Because we were all into superheroes back then. One of my big inspirations for this was just like talking about our own stories that we had come up with and sharing them with each other as kids. There was a villain that was introduced in one of these comics. He's like a cyborg who I eventually named Mars with some help from a friend for inspiration. And yeah, he continues to be a menace in Wind Wirler's life in the current continuity, but I'll get to him in another video. So one of the last comics I wrote for this costumes run was a story about a big fight with this parasite creature that I had a long time trying to decide how I wanted him to be designed. He started out as sort of like a Venom clone, but eventually I kind of went with this sort of derpier look, which I really kind of love. It's sort of endearing to me now, but yeah, this parasite is like a kind of like a Galactus. It like goes to planet to planet and destroys things and destroys planets and civilizations, but comes to Earth one day and affects Danny's brother, and he has to try and stop it without her harming his brother, of course. So the second to last era of Wind Wirler introduces this pretty rad new costume where it was just a full mask, and it was actually based off of a future design I had made for Wind Wirler, kind of like a Dark Knight-esque thing, which I never used, but I always loved the design, so I pulled from it for this. I think this is where a lot of my ideas coalesced, like how I designed the boxes for the panels, and creating scene structure and developing the flow of action. My backgrounds and sets too really tightened up around this time. Then I took a break. I graduated high school and I went to acting school here in Vancouver, and there was just a long while where I wasn't drawing Wind Wirler, and there was this little transitional phase between trying to figure out what I wanted to do next with the character, but it didn't really go anywhere, and I didn't have a lot of time because I was like deep within studies and stuff. So it wasn't until this current design where I finally like buckled down and coalesced everything I had with this and started fresh with the new Wind Wirler continuity. And that's what I'm hoping to make a whole series about and keep it within the sort of 20 pages an issue, kind of the standard for your regular comic these days, at least a standard Marvel comic, and just complete it, you know, start and finish, complete it, have a story arc. Usually an arc goes about 6 issues. And I've got 2 arcs written up, and the first 3.5 pages drawn in pencil as a rough, and I'm currently working on the digital version of the first issue, which I will be posting as a live read-through here on YouTube. I've got plans to take the story way back into the origin of superpowered beings in this universe, which I think will be a really, really interesting take on the superhero genre. And you'll see the evolution of Wind Wirler. Hey guys, well thanks for watching that video. It really means a lot to you take the time to take interest in what I'm doing. So the point of this video was basically to just archive all my ideas. So as much as this is entertainment for you, it's important for me because I'm going to be using it as something to look back on so that I know that what the characters... Oh, hey babe.
Sorry.
That's okay. So here on YouTube, I just want to spread it, you know, and show it to the world, get it out there. So my hopes is to use this maybe as a submission tool to use in a pitch maybe one day for a publisher. We'll see. If it gets really popular here on YouTube, this might be the medium that it stays, but we'll see. I plan to do this with a lot of other characters. You'll be able to see villains and other superheroes that I've made. I'm going to do the whole concept, different costumes, all the whole piece that I did with this video. Let me know if you like this stuff. I'm going to keep posting it just because, like I said, it's my own little archive of ideas, so you don't have to worry about it. Like if you're not interested in this stuff, just let it go down your stream, whatever. I'm going to be doing stop motions, and I'll be keeping up with the Bionicle and Marvel Legends stuff, and yeah, so all that stuff's going to continue. But I'm going to have this, and this is kind of, yeah, this is like the big idea, basically. Like the Wind Wirler is the namesake of the channel, so I'm hoping that this comic universe that I'm creating can expand or become something, or at least some of the characters be be recognized or whatever. Who knows? I've got a lot of hope for this, and I know if I keep at it, it'll eventually become something. It's a lifelong project, so if it's not this continuity, it'll be the next. So yeah, thanks for watching, and if you want to see more of these videos, I'm hopefully going to have some links, possibly right here, over the awesome reboot poster we got from Comic-Con a while back. Sorry, I forget who did it, but you were amazing. Yeah, so like the video if you like the video, and comment, let me know if there's anything I can do to improve the channel, and subscribe if you love this. Thanks for watching.